night out turns to terror. On the evening of the 15th of October 1977, Edinburgh's bustling Royal Mile was alive with music, chatter, and the easy laughter of young people. The pubs were full, the air crisp with autumn, and two teenage girls, Helen Scott and Christine Eady, joined the crowds looking for fun. The night began like any other. Two bright, bubbly friends dressed up and enjoying the freedom of youth. They stopped at the World Ends pub, a popular meeting place on the corner of St Mary's Street. It was one of those nights where everything felt normal, ordinary, until it wasn't. Because that night, Helen and Christine crossed paths with pure evil. By morning, both girls would be dead, and for decades, the mystery of who killed them would torment Scotland. Helen and Christine. Helen Scott was just 17, a girl with long dark hair, striking features, and an outgoing personality that made her instantly popular. She was independent, confident, and had a close-knit circle of friends who all adored her. Christine Eady, 17 as well, was more reserved, shy at first but warm and loyal to those she trusted. She had blonde hair and a sweet smile, and while she wasn't quite as bold as Helen, the two made a perfect pair. That night they had set out together, the kind of carefree evening every teenager dreams about. It should have ended with them heading home, maybe laughing about boys or music. Instead, it ended in tragedy. The final sightings. At around 10 p.m, witnesses saw Helen and Christine leaving the World's End pub with two men. They weren't friends, not anyone the girls knew well. To this day, no one knows exactly what drew them together, whether it was polite conversation, a smile across the bar, or something darker, more manipulative. Those were the last confirmed sightings of the two girls alive. Hours later, when they didn't return home, their families grew anxious. Edinburgh police launched a search, and within hours, the nightmare began to unfold. The discovery. At dawn, the body of Christine Eady was discovered near Gosford Bay in East Lothian, just a short drive from Edinburgh. She had been brutally assaulted and strangled with her own tights. Her injuries suggested unimaginable cruelty. Later that same day, Helen Scott's body was found 6 miles away in a field near Haddington. She too had been assaulted and strangled, her hands bound. The scenes were horrific, made worse by the eerie silence of the countryside around them. The randomness of the crime terrified Scotland. 2 young women snatched off a busy street and killed within hours with no apparent motive, no robbery, no explanation. And worst of all, the killers had vanished into the night. A trail gone cold. Police quickly descended on the area. The girls' clothing, the bindings, the surrounding fields, every detail was scrutinized. Witnesses recalled seeing 2 men leaving the pub with Helen and Christine, but the descriptions were vague and conflicting. The police were under pressure. The case dominated headlines. Parents kept their daughters inside, and fear spread across Edinburgh. But the investigation hit dead ends almost immediately. The 1970s were a different era of forensic science. DNA testing was unheard of. Evidence gathering was crude compared to today. Despite the best efforts of detectives, the World's End murders went unsolved, and as weeks turned into months, and months into years, the case grew cold. a pattern of violence. But in the shadows, the killers didn't stop. Over the next decade, Scotland saw a string of violent assaults and murders, some with chilling similarities. Police suspected that the men responsible for Helen and Christine's murders might still be out there, striking again. Among those names, two would surface time and time again: Angus Sinclair and his brother-in-law, Gordon Hamilton. Sinclair was already known to police. By his teens, he had committed sexual assaults, and by 16, he was convicted of killing an 8-year-old girl. He served years in prison before being released, free to kill again. Gordon Hamilton, less infamous, was nevertheless drawn into Sinclair's orbit. Together, the pair prowled the streets of Edinburgh that October. Together, they targeted Helen and Christine. But proving it was another matter entirely. The breakthrough. For decades, the case files gathered dust. Then, in the late 1990s, science caught up with the crime. Forensic teams re-examined the girl's clothing and bindings, this time using DNA profiling. The results were stunning. DNA samples matched Angus Sinclair, linking him directly to the murders. But there was a problem. Scotland's double jeopardy laws at the time made prosecuting complex, and the evidence wasn't initially enough. Sinclair was already behind bars for other crimes, but the families of Helen and Christine wanted justice for the murders that had haunted them for nearly 40 years. The trial of Angus Sinclair. In 2014, after changes in the law allowed prosecutors to revisit old cases, Sinclair finally stood trial for the World's End murders. The courtroom was packed, the atmosphere tense. For the families, this was the moment they had been waiting for, but also the moment they feared. The evidence laid out was harrowing. DNA linking Sinclair to both victims, fibers connecting him to the bindings, and testimony about his history of predatory violence. The prosecution painted a picture of two men, Sinclair and Hamilton, hunting for victims that night, picking up Helen and Christine and brutally murdering them. Sinclair's defense, however, tried to spin another story. They argued the DNA only proved consensual encounters, not murder. It was a desperate attempt, and one the jury did not believe. After years of waiting, Angus Sinclair was found guilty of the murders of Helen Scott and Christine Eady. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 37 years, effectively ensuring he would die behind bars. As for Gordon Hamilton, he had died back in 1996, escaping justice in life. But the trial established his role beyond doubt. The legacy of the murders. The conviction of Angus Sinclair brought relief, but it was bittersweet. For nearly 40 years, Christine and Helen's families had lived without answers, haunted by the horror of what had happened. Justice had come late, but at least it had come. The World's End murders remain one of the darkest crimes in Scotland's history, a case that exposed the failures of a system unprepared for such evil. It is a story of two innocent girls, a night out which should have been carefree, and the predators who turned joy into terror. Even today, when people pass the World's End pub, the name carries a chilling weight. It is a reminder of the night two young lives were stolen, and of the decades-long fight to bring their killers to justice.